Welcome back to the Pats Cast. My name is Connor,
And I'm Clay.
and we are the best podcast for everything New England Patriots. All right, it's been a while since our last video.
Summer update, little summer
Little
update.
summer
Took a
update.
break.
We are currently recording on June 27th, and I believe our last video ended on a little pre-draft talk and focusing on Julian Edelman's retirement from the New England Patriots, longtime veteran, and one of the best playoff receivers of all time, arguably. So we touched upon that. Like Clay said, we're doing a little summer update here, so we're going to go over the entirety of the off season with the Patriots, the draft, a little OTA talk, and we're going to talk about Stephon Gilmore's holdout at the end of the episode. Just to start off, off season, Patriots had a ton of capital heading into the off season, and Bill Belichick did something that he never really does, and he made a lot of moves. Clay, if you want to give your take on this.
Absolutely. I think that what's interesting is if you look at these lists, and I've been looking at a lot of these NFL.com lists where, you can kind of go through the players that the Patriots signed or re-signed. There's no, gigantic big splashes. It's all contributions, and it's all sort of collaborations and conglomerations of players that are making a very complete team. And a lot of people say that maybe the Browns won the offseason, or maybe the Bucks won the offseason. But I think what's really interesting and what's really dynamic about the Patriots is that we really have no idea what this team is going to look like, because Belichick doesn't like to say rebuild. But if you really think about it, aside from our core defensive unit, i.e., J.C. Jackson, J.C. Jackson in terms of cornerback, we have some other players, but we're keeping our core defensive unit, Dietrich Wise, and we have really good offensive tackles that are all kind of built in house. I'm really happy about our offensive line this season. I think that you can kind of predict how they're going to be, but offensive weapons, defensive line, even to a certain, special teams have always been good on the Patriots, but they've been kind of playing around with the competition and the external guys that they're bringing in. It's very, very, even the quarterback position. We don't know what the Patriots are going to look like, but everybody's been saying that the Patriots have been making good, valuable moves. Because if you look at some of these players that we've signed, take our wide receivers that we signed. Everybody wants, they wanted Julio Jones to come to the Patriots. Take someone like Kendrick Bourne, young, hungry, coming off of a really good season with the 49ers. And someone like Nelson Aguilar, who, although he was notorious for dropping the ball with the Eagles, he had one of his best seasons of his career with the Raiders. And then even these kind of small, not no name, obviously, because they're in the NFL and they're incredible players. Even someone like, we recently signed Marvin Hall, I believe, from the Lions. And from what I saw, he looked like a really good guy with a lot of, passion, fight, and potential as a wide receiver. A lot of these signings are very Patriots. They're very speculative. But I am really confident that this team is something that's going to come out of the woodwork. Not a lot of people are expecting it the way that they're expecting teams like the Bucks or the Browns to be really good. And I think that a lot of that pressure from last season, where they were going off of Tom Brady leaving, is going away now. They got their kind of compensatory draft picks. They picked up their couple guys in the 5th and the 6th round. And they're hungry. They're ready to go. And people are talking about the Chiefs, they're talking about the Bucks, and they're talking about maybe the Browns in the AFC, but the Patriots they're coming. I really think that this is going to be their season, because no one is expecting them to be as good as I think they're going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Patriots totally revamped their team. They filled offensive needs at tight end, most specifically. Defensive line, like you said, was one of our greatest needs, and we filled that gap in free agency and in the draft.
And the draft, yeah.
We'll go more into that, but yeah, like you said, Patriots are really good at taking you know, average, below above average players and making them into stars short term. So we might see that with Nelson Aguilar, former first round pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. We might see some of that first round, ability when joining the Patriots this year. They got a couple big star players in the tight end position as well. So, yeah, just going into it, here's a quick list of everybody the Patriots have signed this offseason. We'll go over re-signings too. So, Cam Newton coming back on a 1-year deal, prove-it deal, but I think he'll start off just like how
Connor, it's backup money. They're paying him backup money.
Yeah, they're paying
still.
up backup money, but
It's a backup deal too.
yeah. But 1 year, he could start. He probably will start at the beginning of the season. But we'll go into the other quarterback that's in the starting quarterback conversation for the Patriots.
Brian Hoyer.
Brian Hoyer, yeah.
Sorry.
Jarrett Stidham, Brian Hoyer. There's another guy, but I don't remember who he is. Justin Bethel, special teams cornerback. He's been really solid on special teams. Dietrich Wise, defensive end. He's been really solid. Cody Davis, another special teams player. Carl Davis, could potentially start on that defense, but they have a lot of depth at that position. So David Andrews coming in with a clutch 4-year deal towards the end of free agency, signing for real cheap. It just comes to show how loyal he is to the Patriots organization. Nick Folk coming back. He was really solid last season. He made some really clutch kicks. He made the game-winning kick against Arizona, which has one of the scariest offenses in the NFL. So we stood our ground. James White coming back. We have a good receiving back in that, large wide running back depth. Lawrence Guy coming back, defensive tackle. He's been really solid. J.C. Jackson signs the second-round tender for cheap. So it's a 1-year kind of prove-it deal. He might get re-signed next season. I hope he gets re-signed next season. D. Virgin, awesome name. Like 4th or 5th cornerback in the depth. Jakob Johnson, our starting fullbacks, coming back. Devin Smith. Marcus Martin, offensive lineman. James Ferenz. Brian Hoyer re-signing with the Patriots. And so those are all of our re-signings right there. And Clay, maybe you want to go through all the free agent signings, the exciting half of free agency.
Boy. Yeah, so I'll quickly go through the free agent signings, and then I'll go through just everybody else, the guys we lost, and then the guys we got who were cut by other teams. So obviously we got the duo, Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. Yes, we're going for it, the 2 tight end offense. We signed Matt Judon from the Ravens, who was a really big signing. Davin Godchow, defensive tackle from the Dolphins, who's probably going to start on that defensive line, which is really exciting. Jalen Mills, another defensive back, really key defensive player from the Eagles. Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar, I talked about them before, 2 wide receivers. Ted Karras, who's going to be probably on the offensive line. It's a position with a lot of depth for the Patriots, but he's definitely somebody who could do a good job on our offensive line. Raekwon McMillan, a linebacker from the Raiders. Montravius Adams, a D-tackle from the Packers. Leroy Reynolds, a linebacker from the Falcons. And then Alex Redmond, a guard from the Bengals. And the safety, Adrian Colbert from the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the guys that we lost, Joe Thuney signed a really big contract with the Chiefs. Fantastic left guard. He's going to go from protecting the GOAT to protecting the baby GOAT. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have a really good offensive line, and Joe Thuney was fantastic, but Kansas City had that money, and they needed to replace the 2 guys that they cut, very surprisingly. Terrence Brooks we lost, safety to the Texans. The Texans have had this craving for getting expatriates this offseason, which is funny. Adam Butler, D tackle to the Dolphins. Brandon Copeland, the linebacker to the Falcons. Jason McCourty, which was a big deal. We lost him, cornerback to the Dolphins. Demir Bird, sort of surprising, coming off a really good year, but not that. Yeah.
It was a
He's coming off
deal.
of a solid year. 1 year deal with the Bears, behind Allen Robinson and Mooney and a bunch of other guys. And Rex Burkhead, we lost to the Texans. Again, that Texas backfield is really packed, and he's kind of used to a packed backfield, and the head coach is used to working with Patriots. So, whatever. We also got Henry Anderson, a defensive tackle from the Jets. Kyle Van Noy, linebacker from the Dolphins, coming back to the Patriots, and then running back Tyler Gaffney.
Yeah, so we lost a few key pieces. Joe Thuney was probably the biggest one, but like you said, we revamped this team, or like I said earlier, it was we revamped this team to I'd consider playoff status just on paper. So that's good there. Going into the NFL draft recap. Now, Clay, you and I had a little watch party. We streamed the draft and we watched get together. How would you describe my behavior come maybe the 10 overall pick in the first round?
So I was fading out a little bit because that afternoon I had gotten my second dose of the vaccine. So I had a different kind of energy coursing through me. One that was a little bit counteractive to my excitement. I was sitting there predicting picks. I got a couple, which was exciting. But Connor was a little bit not a little bit is underselling it. When you were seeing that a certain quarterback was dropping, you kind of got a little bit too excited, and I was like, whoa, calm down there, Connor. And then when there was a trade alert, and Justin Fields got drafted by the Bears, it was great disappointment. I think that the mantra with Ohio State quarterbacks is that they're usually busts, and I know that Justin Fields is a generational talent. He's a great runner. He's an athletic quarterback, and Andy Dalton is better than him for some reason. But I'm really happy that we ended up with Mac Jones, our first round pick. I think that, especially, we'll get into this later with OTAs, he's getting along really well with Cam, which from a logistics point shouldn't make sense because someone like Justin Fields, that athletic quarterback, is someone who looks up to Cam Newton most likely in his game. But Mac Jones is that, pocket passer guy, incredibly accurate. Alabama is a little bit more of a mixed bag when it comes to quarterbacks, so we're probably more likely to get a good quarterback than out of something like Ohio State, which is they're both pro-level offenses, but Nick Saban does a much better job, in my opinion at least. Nick Saban does a much better job of determining which players are ready to be first-round picks, which players are really ready to be starting quality talent in the NFL. And I really trust Bill Belichick in terms of the way that he scouted. And we haven't drafted a quarterback in the first round since Bledsoe. And there's been a reason. We could have drafted a quarterback while we still had Brady. We drafted a quarterback, the second round? In the third, fifth? Those don't matter. It doesn't matter as much as when you go out with your first round pick. For the first time in a bajillion years, you don't trade it away for some value. Don't get some weird, wide receiver at 32 who's competing for a spot despite being a first-round pick wide receiver. We get a quarterback. We get a quarterback who's pretty damn exciting because he really does represent the future. I think that he is, I saw a picture of him the other day at a Sox game representing the Red Sox when they were playing against the Yankees. He's here. Everybody's talking about Zach Wilson going to the Islanders games. Nah. It's all about Fenway Park. It's all about Mac Jones, and it's all about how he's going to shake up the offense, bring us back to the Brady era in the best way possible with these new targets, learning under Cam Newton. And as much as it's not immediately exciting as it would be to draft Justin Fields, I am very, very happy that we got what we got. Draft night was pleasantly, it made me, it uplifted me, but it didn't make me go out of my seat excited like it did for Connor a little bit before the infamous trade.
Yeah, I mean, because Justin Fields fell out of the top 10, it was almost, evident that a team was going to trade up to get that quarterback, and it just so happened to be the Chicago Bears. So, yeah, I was a little disappointed at the time, but after watching more of Mac Jones' tape at Alabama, his football IQ is probably the best in the class at the quarterback position.
4.0 GPA.
Yeah, 4.0 GPA. He's ready to work. You never saw Brady at any, Boston games. He was always at horse races. But, Mac Jones showing that early, coming in early with that Boston New England appreciation, just comes to show how good of a quarterback he is, how loyal of a quarterback he is to a franchise and their fans, and he's just ready to work. So yeah, that
Not
was
playing around. He's there.
yeah, that was the.
I mean, no, we were gonna quickly, Connor. We were gonna talk about Pats West a little bit, and I think we might have touched on it.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as that's awesome, holding these sort of involuntary workouts, I love to see the team bonding, especially mini camp and voluntary, with the off-season stuff, the voluntary workouts, and we'll get into this more later, as I said before. But someone like, I follow Jarrett Stidham on. I'm not big into Instagram or social media. Obviously, Patscast, you got to follow all that social media. That's wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
But me personally, my personal life, I only check it every once in a while. And Stidham is hanging out with Hunter Henry. He's hanging out with his teammates, but he's not here. Not in Boston. I know that doesn't really mean much to a lot of people. Yeah, it's not really gorgeous in Boston all the time. Today, for example, is not so great outside. Don't really want to be outside for an extended period of time. Had my break at work, and I was just sitting out there having my lunch, and I'm like, this is a little bit much.
Let's check the weather real quickly. Actually,
Guess what? Mac Jones is here.
Yeah.
He's here. It means something. That really means something, at least to me. And I think that having that guy as someone who's going to step up and be the leader and be the future of our team, the same thing as Belichick wearing that Bruins hat in the press conference. It's representation. It's being able to say to your fans, hey, I am here, even though, from Boston? No. Am I from Massachusetts? No. Am I from the area? No. But he is here, and he looks like he's going to be here. He looks happy. When he was drafted, he's like, I knew I wanted to be a Patriot. I knew this is something I wanted to have happen to me. About identity, and I love it. I really do.
Yeah. I saw this video. It kind of enhanced the audio a little bit, but when Mac Jones was drafted, he walked up to Roger Goodell and he was like, "This is where I want to be drafted," and it just comes to show, how excited he is to be a New England Patriot, and we want that because, if he wants to be here, he'll, inspire other people to want to be here. And we've seen excitement from Kendrick Bourne through, Pat's West videos. Just a quick little overview about that. Jarrett Stidham flew out, all of, the New England Patriot signings during free agency. So players like Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne, and even some of the existing players, to just have those involuntary workouts in California. So that was like a week-long thing, but it really comes to show, how loyal New England Patriot players are to their franchise. And I think I mentioned this before to you, Clay. There's a clip. This was pre-draft and everything like that. There was a clip of Kendrick Bourne just talking. He was doing like little step exercises and stuff, and little shuffle exercises. you could see Trevor Lawrence walking in the background with those long golden locks, and for probably a couple days, people rumored about the Patriots trading up for Trevor Lawrence, but we all knew that that wasn't going to happen. But yeah, Mac Jones being selected at number 15 in the first round. Patriots had to go offense. Mac Jones was just sitting there on their lap, and they scooped him up, and so that was round one. It was our only first round pick. Round two, they traded up to pick 38 from pick 14 with Cincinnati to select the first D tackle off the board, Christian Barmore, another Alabama player. He's just a big-bodied guy. He's 6'4", 310. He can be that run stuffer, but he's also shown that he can apply pressure through the pass rush, and really excited to add him to the defensive line depth. And your take on Barmore?
I think Barmore is a fantastic addition, especially considering that Alabama connection, having that sort of spark, that young talent on both the offense and the defense. Two guys coming off of a winning program and going to the Patriots, who are hopefully going to be like the Crimson Tide was going from the early 2010s, or going from like the late 2000s, you know what I'm talking about, when they were losing and then all of a sudden they started winning again. Mm-hmm. Not the biggest college football guy. Again, this is a New England Patriots podcast. I'm really excited for him. I'm really excited for a lot of our other draft picks, and I know we're going to go through them, but the peak for me, the two peaks are, I really like Ramondre Stevenson, the running back out of Oklahoma, big body running back. I think that with defenses getting leaner and meaner, I think having a big bruiser to just run through these guys is going to be so exciting to watch. Just another guy, another tool to add to the Patriots running backfield. It's a really stacked position for us and for our offense. And then you might disagree with me on this one, Connor, but I really like Trey Nixon. Our 7th round pick, the 242nd pick in the draft. Wide receiver out of Central Florida. He shows a lot of grit. He shows a lot of talent. He transferred. And I think that he would be a really good young addition to our wide receiver core. So if you want to go through the rest of the picks or provide any more takes contrary or agreeing with what I'm saying about the offensive pickups.
Yeah. I really like the first 5 picks the Patriots had this draft. Mac Jones, Barmore. Their third round pick was Ronnie Perkins, defensive end out of Oklahoma. He was considered a steal. I think his draft stock kind of decreased a little bit because of his behavioral issues at Oklahoma. But at the end of the day, Patriots got a steal of a player. Round 4, Ramondre Stevenson. You already given your take on him. I also really like him as a player. He shows that LeGarrette Blount kind of power back physique and ability. I'm excited to add him into the running back depth, and I really want to see him this season. Round 5, which was actually one of my favorite picks of the draft, was linebacker Cam McGrone out of Michigan. His draft stock also decreased, but it was because of an ACL tear, and he's currently on the PUP list. But really exciting player. He kind of reminds me of Jamie Collins a little bit. Really agile, physical player. Really good at stopping the run, on stretch plays, on pitch plays, and I really want to see him on the field pretty soon. Hopefully he has a speedy recovery, and we're able to see that really, Cam McGrone on the field pretty soon. So that's round 5. We had 2 round 6 picks. We had Josh Bledsoe out of Missouri, and then we had an offensive tackle, William Sherman out of Colorado. More depth to the safety and tackle positions. So, We might see them, we might not, but you know, in the later rounds of the draft, teams like to stack up on depth, and the Patriots got pretty solid players there. And then our round
100%.
7 pick was Trey Nixon. Um, I I think I told you this. I personally thought there were better receivers at the board at the time, but we don't know what the future holds. Trey Nixon could perform better than all of those receivers, so I'm excited to see what he does for the team. So yeah, that's our draft recap, and a few of our takes on the players. And you want to transition to OTAs?
Absolutely. So the OTAs have begun minicamp and such. The summer workouts have begun, and there's some wonderful press conferences from Bill Belichick. Nothing crazy coming out of them. It's all as you would expect. The Cam Newton is looking good. He did have a slight injury. I believe it was a finger to or some sort of a hand to helmet contact, similar to what Aaron Goff had to deal with during the end of the season playoffs. It was unfortunate, but he's going to recover. He's back at workouts, which is wonderful, and he's been looking really good. He's been a great mentor to Mac Jones. There has been some, later off-season news. For example, the Aaron Rodgers debacle is still going on. People are wondering whether or not Jordan Love is going to be the starter, if he's going to get some sort of a long-term deal. And then the other big news is Julio Jones. There was some, leakage that the Patriots had some internal conversations about trading for Julio Jones, but at the end of the day, the Titans traded for him. He is now number 2 alongside A.J. Brown for a really, really scary offense. But hey, we're not in their division, so we don't have to worry about that for now. So the OTAs have been really promising coming out of the Patriots. So I'm happy. I'm excited for what more we have in store, and Mac Jones has been looking good as well. So I think that it's just what we would expect, but that is a very good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. About the Julio Jones trade, I was, I was looking at reports for weeks, and for the longest time, reports have stated that, Julio Jones's landing spots narrowed down to 2 teams, and that was the Titans and the Patriots. And yeah, it's a good thing that the Patriots didn't have to take what it was it $38 million contract. They didn't have to absorb any of that, so that's good. But yeah, that offense is scary with AJ, Julio, and King Henry. We may not have to worry about it now because they're not in our division, but who knows if the Patriots end up going to the playoffs and maybe reach like the AFC Championship. We don't know what's in stock, but yeah, for now that's a pretty scary offense. But going over to Patriots OTAs, a player that's really stood out, not only to me but to many, is Josh Uche.
Hmm.
Second-year player. He was drafted in the second round of the 2020 draft. He had a pretty solid season for a rookie. He was deep in the depth at the linebacker position, despite not having many linebackers last year. But I've seen reports saying really good things about Josh Uche. People are saying that he's the MVP of the Patriots OTAs. So, I'm excited to see what he brings to the table in the 2021 season for the Patriots. I hope he's starting, because he's really shown that he can, work around that really good offensive line of the Patriots. With Brown and a couple other players there. So I'm really excited to see what Josh Uche brings to the table. And then, yeah, I think the focus of the Patriots OTAs was the battle between Mac Jones and Cam Newton. Um, they've had good days, they've had bad days. I know there was a day where Mac Jones had 2 interceptions, and looking at, film of Cam Newton, he's he hasn't been the most accurate quarterback in OTAs. But it's still in conversation who's going to be the starting quarterback to start the season off, and Belichick believes that it's going to be Cam first until Jarrett, or Mac, or even Hoyer step up to the table to challenge Cam Newton. But we've seen mixed things, mixed performances out of all of them, so it's really still on the table. Who's going to be the starting quarterback to start this season off?
I think that it's probably going to be Cam Newton, but again, it's a new team. We don't know what's going on, and something could come from behind, which is really exciting. I think the other thing that's important to note is Stephon Gilmore. I've read reports saying that he's probably going to be back with the Patriots, but he's been a holdout. So it's difficult to have a star holding out. There's not really much you could do about that besides throw money at them, which the Patriots have been doing recently with free agents and people who are re-signing. But in terms of long-term deals, in terms of restructuring contracts, we do have a really, really, really good depth at the cornerback position. That's why Stephon Gilmore has been in trade discussions and rumors for a long time. I could definitely see them trading him for a second-round pick or something if things fall through, if he wants to play somewhere else. And I don't really think that the Patriots are that bad of an organization to warrant not wanting to play for them. I think he's probably looking for money. That's probably it. It's tough to have controversy like this, but I think at the end of the day, he's either going to get paid, get traded, and we're going to get good value for it and have good depth, so it's not concerning, or we're going to see, I don't know, because this has been a weird offseason, there could be something very strange that happens with Stephon Gilmore. But it really doesn't worry me. I think that we're a fantastic team with or without Stephon Gilmore. He's first-round talent. He's star power. But if there's anything we've seen from the Patriots in the past decade or so, it's that star power really doesn't matter. Unless you're Randy Moss. Randy Moss helps.
Yeah, I mean, Stephon Gilmore, 2019 AP Defensive Player of the Year. We've seen, some of the top players in the league try to recruit Stephon Gilmore the same way that A.J. Brown did with Julio. Notable players like DeAndre Hopkins and Jalen Ramsey have tried to recruit Stephon Gilmore to their teams, and I don't think the Rams will make a big move after what they've done for Stafford, but who knows? Like you said, I do think that Stephon Gilmore is going to return to the Patriots, and players want money. There are so many weird signings that happen during free agency where teams give players that don't play to that star caliber really, big money. We've seen it with Trey Hendrickson signing a 4-year, $60 million deal when he only had really one good season with the Saints last season. So, and it's not great because these really poor, overpaid, not these I don't know, these really weird signings kind of refresh the market for a contract. And even with Trey Waynes this offseason, he signed a ridiculous deal, and because of that, Stephon Gilmore wants more money, and he deserves it. There was a report saying that Stephon Gilmore was in he was number 21 for cornerback contracts, and he deserves a lot more money than what he was paid 6 years ago. So Um, I really want to see, Patriots make a push, and it's also really tough because we have the 1-2 punch with Gilmore and Jackson, and yes, that would be ideal for the Patriots to start both of them, but um, they're both coming up on contracts ending. J.C. Jackson only signed the second round tender, so he's due for a contract next season. Stephon Gilmore's due for a contract next season. We need to see what the Patriots do to try to keep both those guys. Um, to keep that 1-2 punch with Jackson and Gilmore. So, of course, I hope both of them return, but who knows? You know, um, yeah. So that's with Stephon Gilmore holding out. I don't expect him to start behaving like Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell has said some really tough things recently. He's blaming Andy Reid on his performance, where, you know, if you're if you want to go to a high power offense like the Kansas City Chiefs, you're probably not going to have as many reps as you wish. As unless you're, a top caliber player, but Le'Veon Bell is just not that anymore. So we might see that with Gilmore if he's traded to a team like the Rams. He's going to be alongside Jalen Ramsey, and that's going to be the scariest secondary in the league by far. But will not being the number one cornerback on that team, shift Gilmore's performance. So, I think it's best that Gilmore stays on a team where he'll perform well like the Patriots, a good system like the Patriots. I'm not shaming the Rams; they're a good organization, but stay in a team that will utilize him like the Patriots, and we'll go from there.
100%.
Yeah. Anything else we should talk about? I think that's it. I think one last thing we should do is talk about some of the remaining free agents in in free agency. So there's a lot of running backs still available. Le'Veon Bell still available. Todd Gurley's still available. Um, Golden Tate's still available. I know a lot of Patriots fans are passionate about him joining potentially. He has number one receiver, written all over him. He was at a time the number one receiver for the Giants once Odell Beckham left, and he used to be a number one receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles once Deshaun Jackson left. So could Golden Tate be the number one receiver now that Edelman has retired? Who knows? I'd like to see him on the team, but who knows? We'll see.
What's also interesting is there's some really valuable players out there still in free agency. Mitchell Schwartz, the Chiefs, Richard Sherman, cornerback, is still available from the 49ers. Everybody thinks he's going to re-sign, but he hasn't yet. After the draft, everybody expected him to re-sign. Even someone like, this is going a little bit down in the depth chart, but someone like Danny Amendola, he could really come back to the Patriots, and he could serve a role as less of a number one wide receiver and more as a mentor for a lot of these guys. Someone like Larry Fitzgerald, he's again not a young guy, but I think that having these people, these players who are still free agents, who could be huge, important mentors and leaders of the team, is very interesting. And considering how the Patriots are a young team, there's a lot of things that are going all over the place. Seeing people like Van Noy come back, seeing offensive tackles come back, seeing key pieces of our team who are on other teams come back and mentor and actually compete is really interesting. So that's why I think that someone like Danny Amendola, even though it's a stretch and people might say it's a waste of money, I think people who know the system, or even people like Fitzgerald who know the system of football, uh, could provide really, really interesting role models slash competitors that could definitely up that Patriots energy.
Yeah, I agree with that take. What stinks is that, you have this big pool of remaining free agents that are on the older side, and you have other teams that prioritize things like age, speed, height, physical attributes like that. Patriots as an organization value culture, they value football IQ, they value, seniority, they value leadership, and these, remaining free agents that are like 30 plus years old can provide that to young, promising players like Jacoby Myers, Damian Harris, um, Mac Jones even. If you have a good wide receiver come in like Larry Fitz or Golden Tate, they could, teach a few things to a quarterback. But, you know, of course they're not going to perform the same as these younger guys. Age does have its effects, but they also have their positive effects. Like I said, leadership and culture. Patriots have always been about that. Let's bring in a guy like Golden Tate, or even a guy like Larry Fitz on a short-term deal, and instill some of these values into these younger players and build a great organization. Not that we have a bad one right now, but just enhance
Just make
it
it
more.
better.
Yeah.
To make it better. I think that the Patriots, as I said before, are really going to come out of nowhere after this offseason. And I'm really, really excited that we kind of have the inside scoop on a team that I personally think is going to rock the regular season, and have players that are going to come back and take on that Edelman role of just being absolute clutch playoff performers. I seriously think, and you could laugh at me for this, I don't think they're going to make the Super Bowl, but I think they have the ability to do what the Browns did last season and make a pretty strong push for a deep playoff run
Mhm.
uh, with this roster. And I think it really goes to show that they're a team that's similar to something like the Bears, where people are saying that the Bears are probably going to make the playoffs again, and that has caused a lot of people to scratch heads. But at the end of the day, the Patriots are a team with a history of winning, legacy of winning, and we had one season where we're going to give Belichick the excuse of Brady left and Cam Newton didn't have a long time to learn the playbook. But we have a MVP as our quarterback, NFL MVP as our quarterback, who played in the Super Bowl, who pretty much changed the way that the quarterback position was played, and was our this generation's Michael Vick. And behind him, we have a young guy who could easily be this generation's Tom Brady. And then we have a fantastic main roster. We have a fantastic secondary. I really don't think that there's anything stopping us, Connor, and I think that, especially with all the ground that we've covered with the off season, with the mini camp, workouts, with the draft, the Patriots have done all the right things in all of the right places, and we're. I don't want to expect winning, but I definitely think that this season is going to be far, far different from the last one in terms of my expectations. But I know that the expectations of other people, and maybe even some Patriots fans, are a little bit different. And I want to give the take that we should be a little bit confident, a little bit excited, but still very humble, because as a slightly newer Patriots fan, someone who got into football recently, as I mentioned before, I know the Patriots also have a history and a reputation of something else other than just winning. And people don't necessarily want the Patriots to continue to keep that legacy of winning. But I think you can't take that away. You really can't take that away, Connor.
Mhm. Yeah, how does that one song go? I don't know who sings it, but there's a lyric, all the right moves in all the right places. It might be Justin Timberlake or something, but run that up, put that as our entrance music when we come into Gillette Stadium. Have all the new free agent signings come in. We're ready. We're ready to win. We may not be ready to win it all, but who knows? But we're ready to just work. We're ready to work. We're ready to work hard. So yeah, this is our little summer update. Um, you know, we probably won't be uploading, weekly as promised, simply because there's just nothing going on right now. It's the middle of summer. Good thing is, really soon, I'd say within the next month or so, people will start talking about fantasy football season, and that's something I'm really excited for. Um, I have a couple players I'm looking at right now, depending on their draft positions. But we may do an episode on that. We may do, some key Patriots players that you should look out for in your fantasy football drafts. But for now, this is just our quick little summer update. Well, it wasn't quick; it was quite lengthy. But um, you know, we'll remind our followers. Follow us on Instagram at @thepatscast. No, punctuation marks or anything like that. But yeah, follow us on the Patscast on Instagram. You'll see all of our updates, all of our posts, all of our reports, and all that. And yeah, we'll see you guys all soon.